Do you think, and I'm not saying these affairs happened, Donald Trump continues to deny them, but do you think, as you mentioned Melania Trump, that if he's not confessing, it is because of Melania and him not wanting to hurt her, make her angry, be on the receiving end of her wrath, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the court of public opinion, and also honestly with his family, if he did just fess up and say this was, 15 years ago, I made a mistake, and be humble about it, yeah, I think it would go a long way. Now, I think legally it probably wouldn't be good because then he's saying that the payoff happened. But, he, of course, is going to deny it until the day he dies. It's just who he is.
Hope Hicks is listed as a potential witness. What might the jury hear from her that could be damaging to Donald Trump?
I think a lot of people are really hopeful that she's going to drop some kind of a bombshell, but my hopes are not up. I think she's going to, not recall a lot or not remember a lot. She remains, a loyalist with the Trump family. This is definitely not something that she would ever want to do. So it does make me wonder if behind the scenes she was not threatened, but if, the prosecution said they had some information that could hurt her. So I'm very surprised that she's actually even testifying. And I hope she has information. She'll do the right thing. But my hopes aren't up that she will.
You told me on this show before that Trump directed you to deny allegations related to E. Jean Carroll. How do you expect him to react to testimony in open court from Stormy Daniels?
I can't imagine. I think there will be a lot of, shaking his head, muttering under his breath, disgusted looks. It'll be a performance for the jury. So that he about what a liar she is and all the things that he says about anyone who ever says anything about him. So I think that will be a day, despite what his lawyers probably are going to ask him to try to remain quiet and not show any facial expressions. He just won't be able to help himself.
Trump says he wants to testify, and you've said that Melania would push him to take the stand. Do you think she's playing a role in his decision? Would she be an advisor in this situation?
I think behind closed doors, as a husband and wife, she would probably say, look, if you have nothing to hide, take the stand type of a thing. But I know this is just his bluster. And as your reporter said earlier, he has said this so many times that he's going to take the stand. And then he's going to come out and say, oh, my lawyers told me I couldn't, so I couldn't go out and do it, which is so funny because he doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't listen to his lawyers. He doesn't listen to anyone. So it will be his choice, absolutely. But I think he knows if he takes the stand, that will cause him a lot of trouble.
I'm curious because you were there. You were around when all of the Stormy Daniels allegations, the fallout, the furor about it all. What was that like inside the White House? I mean, what was the behavior of everybody? How concerned were they about this?
Oh, everybody was extremely concerned. Internally, people were in the West Wing were nervous of what us in the East Wing would be doing. Melania often came out with statements that, were not what the West Wing would want us to say about various different things. And so I recall one time the former president calling me from Air Force One to basically see how angry she was and to see if we were putting any statements out because, we never checked with the West Wing if we were going to say anything. So he definitely was worried. The West Wing was constantly checking in with me. What's going on? What's going on? I never shared with them, her thoughts on it because that was kind of personal, private conversations between the two of us. When I said we're not going to the State of the Union or she'll just meet him on Air Force One, I just stopped there. And I think they all knew in the West Wing not to push further or not to ask her to do any more than that.
So a growing number of your former colleagues who served in the Trump White House say they are against Trump's reelection. They're using terms like threat to democracy. In fact, here's Anthony Scaramucci telling my colleague Nicole Wallace why even more people may not be speaking out. Take a listen.
Well, they probably don't like death threats, Nicole. I think we could probably start there. He will be way more organized this time. One of the reasons why that insurrection failed is that he didn't have the organizational skills. He doesn't have the executive management skills to run an insurrection properly. But he now has willing participants on that campaign that are way more organized than him. And so do not underestimate that.
Do you agree with that? And is there anyone else you'd like to see speak publicly about their interactions with Trump?
Well, I absolutely agree with that. You know, the death threats are something that anybody who speaks out deal with all the time. But he's absolutely right about the organization. And he's going to, you know, I know people thought our first administration was a mess, but there were some really good actors in there trying to work for the country and stop him from doing things. That will not be the case this time. He will put only yes people in all of the positions of power, including from the vice president down to all cabinet members and the heads of agencies. And that's something that should really truly scare the American people. They will be organized. They're going to, you know, consolidate the power to the executive branch, which is going to, you know, stop some of the levers that we have in our government to keep things, you know, safeguarded. So absolutely, I think that people are afraid that he will become the next president and the kind of retaliation they will get if they speak out. And to answer your question, I would love it if every single person who ever worked with him in the White House or, you know, in his business world would speak out about who he is. I think that there's power in numbers, and the more of us who speak out, you know, the more the American people or Republicans will not be able to say, look, they're all lying, they're all disgruntled, because that can't be the case if more and more people speak out.
Okay, my friend Stephanie Grisham, always a pleasure. We'll see you again soon. Thanks. Coming up next, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett on Israel's next move after the Iran attack, the pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, plus his thoughts on the state of the October 7th hostages.